Alright everybody, this is Derek. I'm going to be talking about historical background here in our CSC 179 course, Digital Media's Foundations. It's going to go along with the historical background lecture, depending on when you're taking the class. The dates won't be the same, but the content, the ideas are the same. One thing I want you to remember is that with what we're doing in this first part of the class is that we're learning to work with what we have. We're working within the limitations of technology or devices. Maybe we don't have everything that you could possibly want. Every resource is not necessarily available to you. And so I want you to think about making do with what you have. One of the things we're going to do in the beginning is work with some very, very limited resources. And one of them is going to be what's called an ASCII symbol or an ASCII key series of symbols that represent things. They come from our keyboard. And the keyboard was created in a way to communicate, to communicate ideas and to talk with someone. So we have lots of symbols and little marks on the screen or on the page that make up something. But when you use your imagination, when you only have a certain set of resources to work with, you can become very creative and create something like this. And so taking that idea of just marks, little symbols, you can still create a very powerful communication device, whether it's an image or a book or something else. Even though we have something that was initially created to do one thing, you can, with your imagination, create something else with it. And that's what I want you to be thinking with when we watch the film. Metropolis. Yeah, they did some amazing special effects without the computer, without high-tech gadgetry, but they used what they had. They used cameras, film cameras, and they used the ability to run the film multiple times through the camera and expose things on the same piece of film. They used mirrors, and they used reflections, and they used painting on glass, and they used all this stuff that ended up being an amazing thing. And so this part of the class, you're really limited on purpose so that your creativity can transcend your resources. And so, for example, you get a bunch of blocks like these Legos, and with some ingenuity, you create cities and all kinds of amazing things from them by organizing them in a certain way. Yeah, many of us have a giant bin at home that looks like not even this nice. It's just a big mess. But with an imagination, with a structure and a plan, you can make something that is incredible. And so one of the things you can think about is like we solve problems. We want to fly. No, we're not able to grow wings. Maybe we will in a bazillion years, but we're going to figure out a way to do so by observing nature, by creating things and testing things and experimentation and taking risks. We end up creating the airplane. Digital media works in that way as well. I mean, we are building off of these core techniques and skills that are rooted in art and in a lot of other things. We're looking at things like painting and sculpting and composition. We're thinking about colors and cinematography and sound design, traditional animation, programming, on and on and on, dancing, architecture. All of that stuff to create and communicate ideas. If we think about things and how technology has impacted our society and our culture, we can look back and think about different eras of time. We have the pre-digital era running from about 1450 to 1950. Some significant things took place. The Gutenberg press, photography, the Morse code, faxes, Edison's phonography, all kinds of things are happening before the digital era, and they impacted our ability to communicate. They impacted our ability to do lots of things. They've enriched our lives. Early cinema begins, and there have been some incredibly creative and amazing films where we just saw Metropolis, and we saw the innovation and the beautiful and elegant film and storytelling that was created, where they took the camera in ways where you weren't just a passive observer, but you became an active participant and actually see through the eyes of the actors and really feel what people were seeing and experiencing. There's the idea of King Kong and doing stop motion and having puppets and all of this to tell an amazing story. Of course, we have the amazing stunts and real live action that Harold Lloyd did. So there's tremendous things happening right at the very forefront of cinema. In the another pre-digital era, we have televisions and developing different things for projection of TV, developing frame rates and people making something, content to go on it. So for instance, we have the very first commercial.
America runs on bull of the time.
There you have it. And so you have the very first commercial there. A piece of cardboard with a little camera or a little clock on it, the word Bulova, and someone speaking. Well, there you have a commercial that's being put onto a TV. So it's fairly simple, but that's what you have to work with. But it's still effective. It still equals a commercial. In the digital era, we have people working with computers and digital imagery or digital information, converting digital information into images and light waves or light forms or representing things. In 1950s, we've got Leposky's waveforms, and NTSC is established, and different light pin things are established. The term computer graphics is being coined for Boeing in the 1960s, referring to different drawings to represent the cockpit and the people in the cockpit of planes. We have other eras where we're having games and mice, or the mouse is being invented, GraphCon and ARPANET. Pong, the game Pong, SIGGRAPH, the actual graphics convention that's still going on today, begins 1973. 1970s when CGI, where computer graphic imagery is being used in the movies, and those kind of things are happening. Also in technology, we're having things like Moore's Law, and that's basically saying that the number of transistors on a circuit board is going to double every year since it was invented. And these kind of things are going to impact all of these other things, because as the computer becomes more complex and more and stronger and faster, then we can do more things with it. But technology advances together as new tools evolve, then new applications of it. We need stronger and stronger, better graphics, stronger computers, faster graphic cards, all that sort of stuff. Better video games, better ways to project images or movies or calculate data. And then we have three periods in computer art. The first period is up to the mid-1970s, and we're breaking new grounds and expanding horizons. They're trying things out, experimenting. They're creating art in a very, and we would consider, a primitive way, with just marks on printers and on the screens. And then in the late 70s and through the 80s, we're using mini computers, and people are having access to their own or smaller computers. It's not such something that is happening in big machines or government. Big corporations or governments or universities. People are individual private people can start having their own computers and can design on their own and use photography and start working with things like that. Then in the 90s, we have the third period where computers are integrated into pretty much many or all aspects of life. Equipment's getting cheaper and things are getting faster. Games and movies and theater, they're all using these kind of things, and there's an explosion in the software applications that do many things. Lots of software available. So some examples of early artwork that was created, say 1965, might look rather unsophisticated. However, putting a mark on a page required a great deal of information. You know, every single point is a XY location, and we're going to learn that as we start to program our own images. Every line is made up of a specific spot, and how they are organized one after the other is all going to have to be programmed in some type of program. Here's a little more sophisticated, adding more complex lines, more curvatures, and this is more complex as well, having color, patterns, and a lot of glow and some special effects happening here. Now, in the 1971, we have some information. This is the first keyframe animation. Keyframe animation is animation that is done by setting specific frames of. So what you have is, for every second of animation, you're going to have so many individual pictures or frames, like if you had a movie camera. So for every image, or for every second of animation, there are 24 individual pictures that have to be drawn. And if you're working with the computer, you can use the idea of, say, frame 1 to frame 24, and you can have the computer calculate change across. Maybe something moves across the screen, maybe something gets bigger in that amount of time, maybe something gets smaller, maybe it changes color. So I would say at frame 1, I want an object to be here, and at frame 105, I want it to be here, and the computer will figure out the spacing. So frame 1 it's here, frame 2 it's here, frame 3 it's here, frame 4 it's here, on and on and on and on and on until it gets to 102, where it's supposed to be at the end. And so this film here is an example of that kind of thing. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, you can look at it yourself, but just to get the feeling of it. Another National Film Board of Canada artist. I'm just going to jump through this. You can think in 1971 we have a figure, a fully three-dimensional type of figure. It kind of looks three-dimensional. Still relatively flat. Transforming into other things, and you can use the link to look at these things. So metadata, 1971. Another example is 1977. Star Wars was a great breakthrough, utilizing computers to move the cameras for the flying spaceship sequences, and they, instead of calling it stop motion, they called it go motion, because they're making things go, move forward. In the Empire Strikes Back, you have that classic scene of the Imperial Walkers, the Tauntauns running, the Millennium Falcon going through the meteor, not a meteor shower, but the meteor, I don't know, maybe it's a bunch of meteors. And so we have all kinds of things like that happening. 1977, that was a huge deal. Now, also computers are beginning to be used in things like music videos. The Video for Dire Straits in 1985 is an early computer animation technology. It's a full characters and rotoscoping technique. And rotoscoping technique is when you trace an individual, the footage of a person, frame by frame by frame, and you see that when you start seeing the band. The band has like neon lines around it. So all these extra lines here, this is someone tracing frame by frame, the actual footage and adding in these special effects. So frame by frame, they're coloring just this region. And that's called rotoscoping. We have these nice three-dimensional characters being utilized. You can tell they're rather blocky, but it doesn't matter. They still work. They're doing lip sync and that sort of thing.
That's the way you do it.
At the time, this was very innovative stuff. Another example is Peter Gabriel's use of computer technology, 3D computer technology, and he's showing the shading techniques, meaning they're creating characters with textures and colors, no more of the blockiness that you see here with the blocky characters like we see in this video where they're just kind of blocky. Let's find them again. The beginning is a better. When you see characters that are blocky and really solid shaded where there's not a lot of texture, there's a little bit on the back wall. Now we're going to see with this video.
Why do you want to switch to Walmart Family Mobile?
As soon as we skip this,
talk, text, and web for just $34.88 a month.
Huh?
With this video, we're going to see lots of texture, lots of crazy surface colors, and the feeling of bumps. And this also utilizes a person integrated into a 3D world, a fully 3D environment. So this is pretty amazing stuff at the time. It's, you know, whatever you think, however you think it is now, but remember at the time, this was brand new. No one had seen this kind of thing before.
Sweet little princess, let me introduce his frog nest. You alone can get him singing. He's all fucked up, wanna be your king.
All right, you can look at more of that on your own. So, other examples of people experimenting with things like particles. Karl Sims, Particle Dreams in 1988, looking at some of these things. Looking at what he was doing, someone's out there studying particles, looking at how things are moving and interacting with one another, and someone has to develop these things. Just the fact that there's snow-like particles, or I think that's pretty amazing. How they're moving around and being controlled by dynamics and other forces. This is being developed and studied in 1988, researched. So fascinating stuff there. Another example of utilizing computers in the visual arts, film. Many of you maybe you were inspired by some of these movies and you were wanting to know how they did it, what they did. I remember seeing the Star Trek Wrath of Khan in the movie theater and seeing this effect. This is a little bit of talking about it. They're talking about how they used real footage of the stars. This was amazing in its day. You've never seen anything like this before. Creation, this whole creation of the planet as you fly through. This is amazing stuff. So amazing things with that. Of course, if you're a Jurassic Park fan, you recall seeing these dinosaurs. Yikes! That'll scare you. So with Jurassic Park, we're looking at photorealistic use of texture and integrating. Oops, let me see. It's not wanting to show up. It's this three-dimensional character, fully rigged, fully integrated into the scene. Oops, hang on one sec. So with this, we have a fully rigged three-dimensional character. The surface is rendered with the lighting of the scene, and it feels like it just sits and fits right into this whole environment. This was a huge, huge deal. So Jurassic Park, if you're familiar with The Matrix, obviously, they have that was an innovative film where they're using some incredible bullet time technology where they developed this idea of bullet time. The bullet time is where you set up a bunch of cameras around the footage, and then you can move during that whatever particular frame you're working with. You can choose which camera you want to see, so whenever action is happening, you actually can move around the action. So imagine all around the scene are cameras and filming at the same time. And so then you can move that point of view all around to see that scene from all kinds of different points of view. And it creates an amazing effect. Of course, we could go on with computer technology in film and in video games, where, you know, as the computers get stronger, faster, and can render things better with more details, things look much more realistic, and they handle better graphics in real time. Of course, with technology, you're always going to have examples of this. If you think about the Luxo Junior films with Pixar, and how they are learning how to animate. Jerry's Game on YouTube, or from Pixar, you can look that up on YouTube. And that's the use of subdivisional modeling techniques, and obviously it's always an example of great animation, which always reflects back to what the 2D animators were doing. The classic animation experts or animators for Disney back in the 20s and the 30s with Snow White and these early films had developed a lot of these techniques, and now 3D computer animators are trying to get the same life that those animators had, and Pixar is doing an excellent job of doing that and leading the way in many ways. Of course, there are tremendous amounts of examples in film, and you could go all the way up to the current day. Avatar is obviously an amazing film, what they did with that, and there are more and more and more examples coming out all the time. So the future, there's so many things happening. With who's to say what's going to happen next? But as things continue to develop and get better, there's all kinds of things, not to mention what's happening with just handheld devices and what they can do. So technology is just fascinating. Definitely interested in now 3D printing's coming along, where you can take three-dimensional models and print that, and you can print those. You can have a printer yourself, and it's not just left up to these universities or corporations. It's open. It's becoming more realistic to have your own devices at home. It's more affordable. The technology is there. They're writing better software, and so things are happening very, very quickly and in amazing ways. Obviously, there's the development of touchscreen devices and all kinds of stuff. Research and development, using computers in advertisements all the time. We can think of the way things have changed over time. Some of the early computer films were Tron, and now those reboots, or not reboots, but redo of Tron Legacy. You can see the differences. Facial rigging and photorealistic lighting, like on the Pirates of the Caribbean, of course, Avatar. And you can see things are advancing over and over and over. It's amazing that it goes back to 2006, how many years ago Pirates of the Caribbean film came out, it feels like it was just a few years ago. But time and things change, and we'll look back on something and say, oh, I can't believe we thought that looked good. You know, but at the time, amazing stuff. And so here's the challenge to you, is that you're going to be creating an image using nothing more than letters on a keyboard or symbols on the keyboard. You know, they are what I'm calling is the 16 by 16 ASCII drawing, meaning the letter, if you take the letter M and you know, you want to go in and you want to use a text editor. Here, let me show you. So here's the 16 by 16 ASCII drawing. So if you were to bring up a text editor, and if you were to go, you could just go to right click and say new, and let's see, I'm going to make a new text document, and it'll be some type of, it'll be probably Notepad or something like that. I'm going to open with Notepad. So here you are in a simple text document, text editor. I'm going to make a letter M, and I'm going to change the format here, my fonts, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to go with maybe a 20 size, just to make it a little bit bigger. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 16 that way, and then 16 down. 1, 2, 3, and then go down 16 times. That's the size that I want you to work with. So 16 across and 16 down. So in that space, you're going to create an image. Some kind of image using just letters. So for example, if you were to create something like this, in the space provided, you have used the different symbols to create a shape, something that's recognizable, like this little fox. Another example is someone did the Parkland logo. So here's the tree, here's the bar, and of course they did it a little bit bigger, and that's okay if it's a little bit, if you want to go crazy. But the minimum size has to be this. So here's a little bird, a little chicken. Here's some fire, some smoke, and snow. So taking these ideas, here's an arrow. So on and on and on. You're going to create your own, and you're going to come up with your own idea. And what I challenge you to do is think about the form. You know, make something. This is Pac-Man, like a Pac-Man game. It's really big. You can get something shape and form shape and form. So it doesn't have to be flat. You can actually think about something in different dimensions. Now you have to make your own. This isn't something you're going to copy from the internet. The challenge is always, what can I do? You know, with the limitations and the restrictions that I have, what can I do to communicate an idea or create something very interesting? Maybe the first time you do it, it won't be amazing, but the more you do it and the more comfortable you get with the restrictions, your mind will become much more open and you will see many more possibilities. The first time might be very difficult. But after that, I do believe you will become much more comfortable working within those restrictions. And that's what I want. That's what I want for you. And so that is the assignment that will be due when you come back. When you come back, or you're going to turn it in. That's the ASCII drawing assignment. Now that goes along with Project 1. Project 1 is a challenge to you, because what you're going to be doing is you're going to create an illusion in camera where you are going to create some type of optical illusion. Something might be bigger than something else, whereas this person looks to be great big compared to him due to the depth of how close it is to the camera. So you're going to have to work with your own camera. For example, here's a nice example of that idea. Here's another. Here's another. Someone walking on the house. Here's one that doesn't have this kind of idea. It's an illusion where you're using mirrors, which someone is taking a picture of someone else and they split themselves in a very creative way. So being creative, working in camera is very important. Here's a nice example. You're going to have to turn in two pictures, one that shows your illusion and one that shows how you did it. And so here's the final result, and here's the way they set it up. This was a great example. It's a giant dunking the basketball or grabbing the rim, and it's all an illusion. You need to have infinite focus for something like this so that it's not blurry. You must not ruin the illusion by your camera can't ruin the illusion for you. It has to feel like it is all in focus and all happening. Here's a really cool example of light effects. So it looks like he is shooting lasers out of his camera. This is project 1. This is what you've got to do. You need to read the guidelines. You don't want to have a picture smaller than 720 by 486. You want to have a nice big picture. Okay? 5 megapixels is plenty. If you want to use, I would recommend using the best quality camera you have. All right? And this will be due the day of project 1, which is, you'll follow the schedule to find out when it's due. Okay, this may not fit your particular semester. And so that's the challenge for project 1. All right, think about those things, and that's where we're moving. Remember, learn to work with your restrictions. Let your restrictions actually not be a negative, but be a positive. Try to make the most out of what you have access to. It's a really fascinating and wonderful skill to have.